Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wonder if you can actively unlearn a bad memory or a fear that is holding you back? Well, this new study explores just that. So, picture this, imagine you've had a really bad experience, something traumatic. Afterward, it is super common to have these unwanted thoughts or memories pop into your head. Scientists think these intrusive thoughts are like a learned reaction, a conditioned response to cues that remind you of the bad event. Now, there is a process called fear extinction, which is basically the opposite of this learning. It helps reduce these fear responses and unwanted memories. Think of it like this. When you learn something new, your brain makes connections. If that learning involves fear, your brain creates a strong connection between a cue and a scary thing. Extinction is like weakening that connection. But the researchers in this study were wondering if there is an even more active way to do this. They were exploring a really cool idea, retrieval stopping. This is the concept that when you actively try to stop recalling something, you might actually be helping to weaken that memory. It is like telling your brain really firmly, nope, not going there. So, their big question was, can this retrieval stopping make that process of unlearning fear even better, especially when we give the brain a bit of time to process things? They call this delayed extinction. They decided to use a special kind of experiment called the Extinction, Think-No-Think paradigm, or eTNT for short. This is a way to test how well people can either remember something when asked or actively try to forget it. Here is what they did. They got 59 volunteers. First, they had these volunteers learn associations. Imagine seeing an object like a specific chair and being shown a scene that goes with it. Some of these scenes were pretty unpleasant to make the association a bit scary. They learned lots of these object scene pairs. Then, they made things a bit scary for part of the learning. Certain objects were paired with a loud, unpleasant scream. This is the fear acquisition part, where the object becomes a cue for something bad after a full 24 hours, which is the delayed part. They brought everyone back. This delay is important because past research suggests that waiting a bit can actually make the brain better at learning to inhibit things when it comes to fear memories. During this second day, they tested the participants on different instructions. For some objects that were previously linked to the scary scream, participants were told to think about the associated scene, meaning they had to actively recall and describe it. For other objects, they were told to no think, which meant they had to actively try to suppress any memory of the associated scene. And for some control objects, they were just told to view them, which is how standard fear extinction usually works, just passively seeing the cue without the scary thing. Their big guess, their hypothesis, was that by actively trying to stop thinking about the scary scenes, the fear associated with those objects would go down more than with the objects where they just passively viewed them. They measured this by asking participants to rate how much they expected the scary scream to happen. So, what did they find? Well, the good news is that fear did decrease for most of the scary objects. People got better at not expecting the bad scream. This shows that extinction in general was happening. However, here is the kicker, when they compared the group that was told to no think or actively stop retrieval. To the group that just passively viewed the objects, there wasn't a significant difference. The no-think group didn't actually show a bigger drop in fear expectancy than the view group. They even did some fancy math called Bayesian analysis to try and get a clearer picture. This analysis is good because it can tell us not just if there is a difference, but also how likely it is that there isn't a difference. And in this case, the results basically said there is only weak evidence that actively trying to stop recalling the memory is actually better than just the standard way of doing extinction, which is just viewing the cue without the threat. So even though people were good at trying to suppress their thoughts, as shown by the fact that they reported thinking about the scenes less and less over time in the no-think condition, this active suppression didn't seem to boost the unlearning of the fear itself compared to just seeing the scary cue. The researchers were really interested in this idea of retrieval stopping contributing to extinction. They thought it was a promising avenue because it relies on inhibitory control, which is that part of your brain that helps you control your thoughts and actions. And the delayed aspect was important because some research suggests that delaying extinction training might strengthen this inhibitory learning. Now, they did point out some things that might have affected their results. For instance, the objects used for the view condition, which was their baseline for standard extinction, weren't actually trained with any kind of memory association beforehand. This might have made them a bit different from the think and no think objects, which did have an association. This lack of a memory link for the view objects could have made it harder to compare them directly. Also, they noted that measuring fear with just asking people how much they expect something while useful doesn't capture the full physiological response like a heart rate or skin conductance. Essentially, while participants were good at actively trying to stop their thoughts, this active effort didn't seem to give them an extra boost in unlearning the fear compared to just doing what is considered standard extinction. It is like they were great at fighting the urge to remember, but that fight didn't necessarily make the memory of the fear disappear faster. The researchers suggest that maybe retrieval stopping is more about preventing the memory from coming back stronger later. Or perhaps its benefits show up more over a longer period. They are keen to explore how this strategy might affect whether the fear returns later on, or if it spreads to other similar cues. So, what does this mean for us? It is a bit of a mixed bag. The study confirms that actively trying to suppress a memory, as with the no-think instruction, does seem to work on a surface level, with people reporting fewer intrusive thoughts. However, its power to directly speed up the unlearning of fear itself, or extinction, might not be as strong as researchers hoped, at least in this specific setup with a 24-hour delay. It's a reminder that our brains are complex, and different ways of managing memories might have different effects and impacts over time. It is important to remember this was one study, and there are always limitations. For example, they had one person scoring the recall data, and ideally you'd have two people to make sure it is really objective. Also, they measured fear expectations after 8 repetitions. And some research suggests you might need even more repetitions for retrieval stopping to show its full effect. What's really exciting, though, is that this research opens doors. It highlights that there might be different pathways to managing difficult memories. While direct suppression wasn't a supercharger for extinction in this experiment, it is still a fascinating area. Future studies will likely dig deeper into the timing of these interventions and how they affect our brains in the longer run, especially in real-world situations where fears can really take hold. It's a great example of how scientists are constantly looking for new and better ways to help people deal with difficult memories and fears. It tells us that while actively trying to push a memory away might help in the moment, the way our brain unlearns fear might be more subtle. So, what are your thoughts on this? Do you ever try to actively stop thinking about something annoying? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the mind, give this video a like and subscribe to RUBIN'S Mind Lab for more fascinating research broken down just for you. Well, see you in the next one.